So I've got this box open. Just want to go through some basic modelling options with polygonal modelling. So I'm going to start with a box, make it any size, I don't really care, and make sure in the properties that it's got one segment in each direction. And I want to get maybe a bit of an idea of the size there. Length, width and height, you can see all around 500, and I'm happy with that. So, before I do anything though, I'll go and right click and then convert to editable poly. So hopefully you're all used to that, and then we can go and look at the different vertex, edge and polygon modelling tools. So you don't really need to use border that much at first, and then element as well, you probably can leave for now. So with Vertex we can select any of those corner points, go to move, I'll just right click to do that, click the button up here as well, and they can be moved different directions. Edge, of course, we've got the same option, select an edge, you can move the edges. And face, of course, same thing. But then where I think this really pulls away from Revit in terms of capability of the software is that I can then build on that. So let's say I want this to come out with that, again, that face or polygon option. I might just expand this so you can see the next panel. You can extrude, so I can then bring that out and then go to Vertex and change these points. And notice how now it's changed to a triangle because I've bent that surface. And that's good, because often you want triangles and they're quite a difficult thing to get with Revit. But 3ds Max, it's much, much easier. And you get a bit more control as well. So that's one way of getting a triangle. I'm just going to extrude this again. So now you can just, oh no, sorry, that's not going to work. There's a shortcut, but I'll come back to that. So, okay, so here I've just lost my panels. Why are they doing that? Oh yeah, here we are. So again, with extrude, I can bring that out, and someone's, oh, maybe it's me, has reorganised these panels. Smoothing groups should be further down. That's alright, though, I can just scroll down to it here. Okay, so we can of course keep extruding different faces to keep adding more. But what if I want to change that? What if I want that to be a triangle now? Well, what I can do is go and delete a vertex, but it keeps the others. Right, so then I can make my own surfaces. So I'll go back to Polygon, and then you can use Create and essentially snap to the vertex points that are there. Now the trick there is knowing that you have to right click to finish it, because you can have as many sides to a polygon as you want. So to let it know you're finished, you've got to right click and you get a surface. So now to fill in this, I could either make actually a couple of triangles would do. That'd be kind of interesting, I think, actually. So I'll do a triangle there. And so again, it can't just do a simple triangle, it's got to do two, but it knows that and it does it wrong. And so, did I click 4 points? I must have. Yeah, so it would have been 3 and then 3. Yeah, that's right. So then, if you put this one in. Right, so that would be very, very difficult with massing in Revit. But 3ds Max, of course, not too bad. Yeah, well, if you want to make walls out of this, you can actually bring that back to Revit and put it in a massing family, and then it will let you pick these surfaces to make walls. So that's another option. But why I really still like this more than Revit is, let's say that's the kind of shape I want, but I want to make it have different proportions. So this is something that is just impossible in Revit. But here I can use the scale tool. So I can make the whole thing bigger. Remember, it was about 500 by 500. But let's say I want that to be my space. So I can scale the whole thing up, not a problem. But then let's say I want it to be higher, but not change the plan. Right, so I'll just bring this up so you can see the top view, how it is, and then I can just scale the height. Or let's say I want it to be wider, so that's dragging on the z-axis. If I want to make it wider but not deeper, I can scale just the x-axis. So you can scale non-uniformly. It's a much more free-form modelling approach than with Revit, because with Revit you'd need to set up lots of parameters and attach things in different ways to make that work. Again, it's not because Revit's bad, it's just a different approach. And yep, so this can give you lots of options, and then maybe I'd realise, oh well, the front, that's kind of working, but then this part is not what I want. So much easier now with 3ds Max, just go and get these edges, so with the move tool, and they can be brought down fairly easily. But again, in Revit that would be a much more complicated thing. So that's why I'm trying to encourage everyone to use it. We'll give you lots of design options that you just don't have with Revit. Yeah, that's it. There's my interior. And see, because you're doing a modelling subject, you don't need to have as many of the orthogonal views, plans and sections and elevations as you would in your later subjects. And so it's a good chance just to focus on the modelling and look at the different options that you have. And maybe then it'll be clear to you why some firms still work the way that I did all through the 90s, because Revit didn't exist in those days. And there was a BIM program called Archicad that wasn't all that popular, but I did use it a little bit. But it had much more limited modelling options than any of these programs. You couldn't do anything like this in Archicad. It's actually more popular now than it was back then, even though that's not what they would have told you. But yeah, I think it's about 10-15% of the market in Australia. In other countries in Europe, it's a bit more popular. Even in America, it's still fairly popular. But Revit is, I'd say, about twice as popular as Archicad. Yeah, overall, yeah, just because of the Autodesk thing, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, a bit of a... Yeah, right, yeah, the Archicad is... With Revit? No, oh, really? Oh, it was just the timing, because... Right, no, I've seen heaps of ads with Revit, and, yeah. Right, yeah, certain firms, especially if they've got Apple computers, then they're forced to use programs like Archicad and Vectorworks, because Revit obviously doesn't work on a Mac. Yeah, so, yeah, but no, Revit overall is definitely more popular than Archicad, but Archicad's good. It's just that the modelling tools are still a bit limited, even though they've gotten a lot better in the last few years. Yeah.
3D Max to make things wrap.
Yeah, I mean, if it's this, I would say,
Oh, yeah, well,
or even that, no.
That's my building that I've created.
Right,
my
look, then definitely 3ds Max. If that's your design, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Revit, it'll kill you trying to do it with Revit.
I'll do it in Revit.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult, yeah. And it won't look very good, even if you get it done. Yeah, 3ds Max, for sure.
My question.
Yeah, and so, yes, what I was going to say with that, so, again, if you like that sort of geometry, firms like, Zaha Hadid's firm, Daniel Lipskin's, Daniel Lipskin's firm actually does use Revit, but they do all the initial design with very different software. More like this. They don't use 3ds Max, they use Maya usually, but it's a very similar approach. And then, I know Zaha Hadid's firm, they don't even use BIM software. They do their 3D modelling with these high-end 3D modelling programs, and then they go back to AutoCAD to do their plans and sections the old 2D way that you're doing in construction. So that's... Yeah, look, I still have got a soft spot for it, because that's how I started, and it's got some great options, but yeah, it also can slow things down a lot. It's generally a lot slower than the BIM approach. Now, so I'm just trying to look for It's annoying. The role, no, so this is the one thing, it's because they use the right terminology and I'm shocking with cinematography. It's this one, I think. No, that's not it. Anyway, I just do it. No, I just want to change the view direction, and there is a look tool, but it's just being stupid.
I think it was in that one that you were just in.
Yeah, well, that's orbit, but then there's one for look.
Okay.
Yeah, and these are the right terms, but again, I'm just being stupid and not thinking of the right thing. It's not that one. Oh, yes, that's that one. It's this one. Okay.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so, yeah, so there we are. We've got a space sort of starting to look like something.
You can then take that view, sort of, and...
Yeah, yeah, and you can render that. You've got total control over how you put the materials on.
Because I can do a section like that, basically, couldn't I? If I was going to do
Yeah,
my free...
there is even a section tool in 3ds Max.
Right.
Yeah. So it's this section plane, which used to be, I thought it was under tools, but it's been a while since I've used it. But yeah, there is a section plane. I used it. There's one in V-Ray that's even better than this.
Yeah, my friend who just finished to architecture,
Yep.
this is B-Ray.
Yeah, oh, of course. Look, anyone who uses 3ds Max all the time needs to have a dedicated rendering program, because the built-in thing that we've been looking at, ART, that ships with the program, like this one, ART renderer, is a bit limited. It still works better than it does in Revit, but yeah, it's not quite good enough for...
This is the model for my Spatial. So then if I was to model that in Revit and bring it over to 3ds Max,
Yeah.
will it catch those light shadows and then...
Oh, of course, you can do even more. But look, I would just do it in 3ds Max. Anything like that, I wouldn't try to model it in Revit, really, because it'll be very difficult. You'll get the walls to work, but you want the floors, by the look of it, to also follow some of that, and that's going to be a bit of a struggle.
Yeah.
And then there are some other issues. Ceilings don't work with massing. And that's a real problem for interiors, because you can't have the ceilings follow that geometry. You've got to go and... It's a lot more work. You can make the roofs follow it, but then the ceilings need to be there usually for the lights, and yeah, it's a real problem. So yeah, I would say just do it in 3ds Max, and then it'll be easy to, if you need to get the plans later, you can do that separately. But you can get this geometry to give you a lot of the line work for your plans.
For some reason my computer won't download